and mothers is quiet at. That's where we ride at. They're gonna be dancing in the streets. Dancing in the streets. Ali on my Ali on my we gonna be dancing in the
We are live. All right, so let's get right to it. Let's stop goofing around. So we are doing an sounds like epic hello world. So let's get into the terminal and let's continue. So in today's episode, the feature that we will be adding is logging. What is logging, you might answer. What is logging, you might ask? Well, logging is basically generating a log, right? So something that you can use for troubleshooting purposes. So it allows you to understand what is happening and what has happened with the program. So for example, let's say that your application has crashed at some point in time, but of course that'll never happen. We don't write applications that crash. What do you think? We work for Google? We don't work for Google. We don't make apps that crash. Oh man, I'm so offended. How dare you suggest? I'm gonna have to have some invisible water just because you said such a thing. All right, yeah, we don't write applications that crash, but just for those of you that are not perfect as I am, you should have logging. So if your program's running and at some point in time in the code, it gets stuck, right? It crashes, it hangs, it freezes up. You want to figure out what led to the crash, right? And a key way that you can figure that out is by knowing historically what was happening just before the crash, right? So if you can find out that every time it crashes, it just started to run a loop, right? Without logging, you might not be able to discern that. All you know is it's crashing, right? But with the log file, you can see the last entry in the log, it begins the loop, and then you can actually write your code in a way where you can provide information to support staff so it can actually specify perhaps actual problems. So for example, let's just say that in order for your program to proceed, you need to get a certain piece of information, like you need to know what the current time is, right? The next function requires current system time. For some reason, the system time is not available. And if it's not available, you know that it's going to be a big problem, right? So you can write in your logs, you can have in your logging where it can not only complain and mention, what's happening, so you can kind of get an idea of what event occurred just before the crash, but it can also indicate to you that, hey, unable to get system time, right? Because you know that in your code, you were fetching the system time at that point in time, and you did a test for that. So testing to see whether you got it back or not. And if you don't get it back, you could have that in your log. So there's a lot of different things like that. But let me show you how it works. It's pretty simple, pretty basic. Those are just the fundamentals. But let's add some logging to our epic hello world. And shout out to my CPU squad. And buongiorno. This is the Computer Programming University, where learning is always fun, as it should be. First step here is always to smile. Click subscribe, then click the bell. Click the bell because you don't want to. That's right. Make sure you click that bell. All right. So the first thing is the logging code is part of a module. So we're going to import logging, and that's going to allow us access to the power of logging. So with logging, you have several levels. There's levels of logging, levels upon levels. Okay. There's debug, info, warning, error, and critical or error. Will Robinson. So the general idea is you want to, I mean, there's a lot of different scenarios, and we're not going to go too deep into that. This is sort of a for beginners course that we're doing here. So what I'm going to do here is we're going to add a log message. So let's say I want to track right now. So logging. So I'm logging, I'm referring to Triple G. Look at that. I'm just testing to see if you guys are actually paying attention. So logging, so I'm calling from the logging library. What am I calling from the logging library? I'm calling basic config. And what I'm gonna do is file name. I actually spelled it correctly. And then I'm gonna have my file name there. Then I'm gonna do comma level to set my logging level. And then I'm gonna say logging dot, and then I'll set the actual level. So we can do debug for this, and then I have to close my parenthesis. The but anyway, so there we have it. So let's just set my file name. So I'll say my first log .log. So that's gonna be the file that I'm actually gonna log everything to. So what I'm indicating is whenever I log something, because you're gonna specify what you want to log, right? So let me go through the whole thing. So first we import logging. So we have the logging library available, right? Then we specify the log file, and the log file is the file that we're going to write to whenever we, how do you put it? Well, it's not everything that's going to get logged. You're going to specify what you want to log, right? And whenever you do that, that information is going to go to this file. So basically think of it as tagging. So you're going to go through your code and you're going to tag certain things or events or information that you want to go into the log file. So let me show you how that works. I'm going to show you, that's what I'm going to do next. But whatever you tag or identify to go into the log, it's going to go into this log. You can adjust the log levels. What that means is if your application is crashing or behaving in a way that it should not be behaving, and you're in a troubleshooting mode and you're unable to identify what the exact problem is based on the standard logging levels, because you don't want to have an excessive logging level where you're doing a lot of logging, because you always have to consider when you're developing programs, you got to consider efficiency, right? So when you're logging, that is additional activity that your program is doing, and that's taking resources, right? So, and even the log files themselves, depending on the type of application, log files can grow to be very, very large. So never get in the habit of just thinking, oh, it's just logging a little text file. Log files can be a problem to the extent that even if it is irrelevant the amount of resources that your program is taking to actually write the log, if that's irrelevant, does not affect the effect on your performance of your program is negligible, right? It's so tiny that it's irrelevant. Even if that's the case, depending on the complexity of your application and what it's doing and how many things are being logged, you can generate a very large log file very quickly, to where, once again, your program doesn't care about the time it's taking to log, but your server does care about free disk space. Now that can and does become an issue. I've seen it before. I've seen before servers, I mean, truth be told, systems admin, I think there's a little bit of systems admin negligence there, because ideally your server should be set up in a way where you should have been alerted way before it got to the point of affecting the server performance. There should be sort of different ways to do this, maybe like a soft level warning, a hard level warning, where when you exceed a certain amount of disk space usage, you get some kind of alert, which is kind of like, hey guy, what are you doing? And then when you get to dangerous levels, it's like, okay, everybody, you know, this space. So your systems guy should be alerting you long before things get crazy. But I've seen situations where, for whatever reason, that doesn't happen. So the application is allowed to generate a log file, which gets excessively large, and then it starts affecting the server performance and therefore your program. And if the program is a critical process, which is part of your business, where it being down or not performing properly has a monetary value in terms of losses to your customers and therefore to you, that's a very bad thing. So keep that in mind. So general practice is you don't want excessive logging or log levels to be happening in your application unless you are in a troubleshooting mode. So normally you have minimal log levels that you have. You have a log file that's not too verbose, you know, just the facts, just the most important things, the standard type of things that you think it's good to log on a regular basis. And then there's a problem happening. So your support staff can, like application support engineers, for example, they have the skill level to be able to go into your code and modify the log level. So like right here, you see it says level equals logging.debug. So this is something an application engineer would have the competence to actually be able to do. Go into your Python code and go in here and change this from debug to something else or whatever level they want to. So you can set it to the maximum level. Therefore, what you're saying is, I want to see everything. Tell me every single thing that's happening, everything that's been tagged, right? It's really up to, and I don't know if there's a way that, I don't know. Well, there's an actual Python debugger, which that's a whole different thing, where you can perhaps get, not really perhaps, you can get much more levels of information in terms of what's happening. So that, I mean, you can even see the libraries being imported. But as far as the logging library, I don't know that there's a level that will log untagged items. So meaning something like something that I can use, like logging.something, let's say logging.all, that every single line gets logged. So it's like print statement, blah, 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 print, there might be something like that, but I'm unaware of it. As far as I know, it only logs what you tell it to log, right? And then what goes to the log file is based on the log level, right? So the log level will specify what type of events go into the log file, right? So you can say, I want all the log levels or only this level and up, and so on and so forth. And depending on what log level you set, every log event that you have in your code that matches that level or that range of levels will be inserted into the file. So I'm going to do a very basic one right now. So I set up my parameters here, and now what I want to do is we're going to do a logging level here. This is just going to be like a basic info. So logging.info. And then we're just saying text, whatever, while loop beginning. I feel like I didn't spell that correctly, but whatever. Anyway, on that note, I think we're good. Whoa. All right, so let's save this, WQ. WQ. Go. Look at that. So this is where we left off yesterday with our epic hello world. So it says hello world, and then it's what are you up to? What are you up to? What are you up to? That was kind of silly. Should maybe modify it to something more sensible. But so if the code was written correctly, we should have a log file that should have information. So there it is, my first log. So if we go into that file, we can see my first log, and there's our info. So it says info root while loop beginning, right? Info root while loop beginning. So what a support staff can do is they can actually search this for certain types of errors. They may know certain types of errors that indicate certain types of problems. So they can say, you know, is there a queuing issue? Let's search for queuing, you know, things like that. Also, you can do a grep and filter out all messages of a certain log level. So maybe you want to see critical or warning or whatever. So you can grep out all of those. So do we have any severe level items that were logged? Let's see what all of them are, kind of thing. Of course, you can grep multiple levels if you want. So you can see, let me see the 2 most severe levels of logging. So a lot of different things that support staff can do, but they can only do it if you help them do it by actually having sensible logging within your application. So that being said, I don't know why I just went back in there for. I do not know. So that's it. Import logging. Did some basic configuration here, setting some parameters, log file name, logging level, and then we actually just have an event here that we're sending to the log file, assuming that the logging level is relevant, right? So let me again remind you of the log level. So you have debug info, warning, error, Will Robinson, and you have critical, right? So we have a level of debug. So that is the lowest level, right? So what that means is you're going to get the most verbose logging level, right? So basically every level will be logged. If there's a debug message, it'll be logged. If there's an info message, it will be logged. If there's a warning message, it's going to be logged. If there's a critical message, it'll be logged. If it's an error message, it will be logged, every single level. Now, if we set the debug to a higher level like info, then the debug messages will not be captured, right? It'll be info and up. If we do warning, it'll be warning and up. So we're going to ignore debug and info, right? And then if we make it error, it's going to be error and up. And we're going to ignore the warning, the info, and the debug. And of course, if we set it to critical, then we're only going to log critical events. So it's pretty simple. And that's all there is to it. So now we have added a new feature to our Epic Hello World program, and that feature is logging. Try it. All right, on that note, let me take a quick look in the chat and see what is going on. What is going on in the chat? I don't know why Igor wants me to sing. I think I sang PMAC 1 already. He wanted me to sing PMAC 1 at the end of this episode, but I've already sang it. So I don't know why he wants to repeat. I think my singing is really good. That's got to be what it is. My singing is exceptional, so he wants me to sing it again because of that. That's got to be.
Pick a nigga.
Whoa. All right, guys, I'm out. Thanks for watching. This is Computer Programming University, where learning is always fun, as it should be. Buongiorno, buonanotte, hasta luego. Until next episode. Click subscribe, then click the bell. Click the bell, because you don't want to miss out on more awesome content that I'll be posting soon right here on this channel. Welcome aboard. Buongiorno, salut, vigets, bienvenidos, hasta luego todos. I'm so excited that you've decided to join the team so we can learn together, grow together, and achieve our dreams. Let's do it. See you soon. Grazie. Learning, learning, learning. We gonna do some learning. We're gonna learn.
Subscribe, I'm telling you.
Arrivederci. Buonanotte. Ciao.